Hi, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Into Cybersecurity. And today we have a great guest, Christina Lemmon, or do you go by Chris?
I do, yes.
Oh, okay. Chris Lemmon, and she'll be telling us about her story breaking into the industry. But before that, ensure that you follow us both of us on LinkedIn. If you're joining us from LinkedIn, feel free to drop comments in, asking questions, telling us where you're phoning in from, and then we'll be able to interact with the audience. For those of you on LinkedIn, hit that subscribe button and that notification button. That way, the next time we come on, you'll see us come on. And for those of you on podcast after the fact, feel free to share us with all your friends and family. And with that, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why did you want to come into cyber?
Sure. And I just wanted to say, Chris, thank you so much for having me and just for doing this podcast in general. Was really excited when I found out about it. So I'm Chris Lemmon, and I'm a security engineer, working right now as a consultant, doing security assessments and pen tests. And I'm relatively new to the industry. I started in 2019. I was a nanny, and I was actually looking for a coding boot camp. I wasn't even interested in cybersecurity. It hadn't even crossed my mind or wasn't on my radar. And I was looking for a coding boot camp and came across a free cybersecurity boot camp. And I thought, well, cybersecurity, that could be helpful, with secure coding practices and whatnot. So if I get in, I might as well give it a try. And that's kind of what started my journey. Was I got into this, the boot camp, and I got my security plus through the boot camp. And then like so many others, I ran into the problem of, submitting tons of applications and really hearing nothing back. So um, just started doing a lot of research and, consuming everything I could find on how to break into cyber, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited that this podcast exists, because I've been there. Like, what do I do now? Like, how do I break in with no experience, and, this being just one in this large pool of hundreds of applicants. So um,
Oh,
yeah.
you have your fan club out there. Let's go, Chris. Folks are already ready for the weekend. Happy it's Friday. Um, we have lots of folks chiming in. So you mentioned that you started looking for coding areas. What
Mhm.
about coding got you interested? Was that to begin with? Like, were you always into that, or was that new to you? When did you get exposed for wanting to do coding?
So the funny thing with that is I took the really, really long route into getting my bachelor's degree. I actually dropped out of high school when I was 15, and didn't go back and I got my GED in my early 20s, and then went to community college and got my associate's degree, and then was able to transfer in to a local college and get like a full ride scholarship. And I originally had started in psychology, and I was almost almost completely done with my psychology degree, and I had like an entire year and a half left of scholarship funding and grant funding. And I said, well, I might as well, see what else is out there, because, take advantage of free learning, free education. And so I took a like an intro to web development course, and um, I both loved and hated the pain of, coding and finding bugs and getting stuck and working on something forever, and then finally finding, the littlest thing that was wrong, and like the satisfaction of making that run. So that was actually back in 2016. So I changed my major, and it was more of like a general. I did not get a computer science degree. I got a Bachelor of Arts in computing, because I didn't want to have to go through all of the science requirements, because that would have just prolonged the degree. So I did that focus in web development and took a few different, I think it was 9 courses focused on, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then a couple of like database courses and whatnot. So that's how that happened.
Um, Naga's asking, was there a reason behind coming into cybersecurity? I mean, you mentioned it while you were looking for coding boot camps, but what really did that pivot?
Honestly, it was that there was a free boot camp, and I just thought, hey, I can get a certification with this boot camp, learn something new. Let me just see what it's about. Um, and that's kind of what sparked my interest. I think in going into that with the Security Plus, it's so broad. It touches so many different topics across cybersecurity that I just thought, hey, this is a field that I can literally do anything I want in. There's just so many different areas that there's a focus for everyone. Um, and even with like a psychology background, getting into like social engineering and OSINT work and that kind of stuff, like it just is very appealing to me for so many different reasons.
I was just about to ask that. How does your psychology background play into what you liked about it or what you're doing today?
It definitely helps with OSINT work, right? And social with social engineering specifically. And it's social engineering may not be my favorite thing, but I'm good at it. And I think maybe because of that psychology background of being able to read people and kind of provide what I think they're looking for
Mhm.
when I'm talking with them. Um, yeah, I think it's just overall working with people in general and networking also helps, which I think is probably um, the biggest thing that has helped me in breaking in has been my network and all of the people in it.
So earlier you mentioned that you felt like a fish in the sea, one of a hundred or one of 1,000 applying for a role, and now you're mentioning that your network was your biggest asset. Like, how did you tie the two together? Did you use your network to get your role?
I did, yes. So, like I mentioned, after applying for so many different positions and not hearing anything back at all, I started, doing some research, and it was the same themes that were coming back. Like, in order to break into the industry, you need to, show your passion and dedication, and also build that network because it's really not about. I mean, also good to have skills and knowledge, but it's a lot of it is about being able to show the passion and dedication that you have and that desire to learn and grow. And, you need that network to be able to show that to get your foot in the door because there are so many applicants. So, yeah, I started doing attending meetups and I volunteered for the boot camp that I had just completed. So that was a great networking experience, and that got me my first um, cyber education position because I volunteered at first and then they hired me onto the boot camp. So I worked with the boot camp and then they asked me to create a CTF course. So I created a CTF course and then ran that. Um, and
Whoa,
it just kind of, yeah, it just kind of
you,
spiraled from
you
there.
created a CTF course? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So it's specifically to help students get into the industry by giving them that environment to network in and also providing them with that experience to put on the resume. So it might not be paid experience, but it's showing that they have that passion and dedication towards learning and self-directed learning, which is huge because it's just so important in this industry specific. So yeah, the course is based around the National Cyber League competition, and we get subject matter experts in almost every week to talk on a different topic. And we build our teams out and basically just network with people. I'd say there's about 25% of the students are in the industry already. And they come back. You can take the course as many times as you want. So it's really great to see those alumni coming back and giving back to the new students and providing advice and mentoring them as well.
Wow. Morel Rodriguez, one of our viewers, mentioned you went from student to instructor. This is the way. She asked,
Yep.
when's the next CTF?
The next one will be in the fall. So fall 2022. Well,
Okay.
we try to align with the National Cyber League competition.
So we'll share the links for our audience, and you can comment it to me, and I'll paste it out there and
Okay.
share that with them. So you're building your network. You're looking for jobs. What was your approach? What did you know where in cyber you wanted to go to? Because that's one of the challenges I see
Yeah.
when people is like, uh, sure, I want to get into cyber, but where? Like you mentioned, the security plus is so broad, so
Mhm.
cyber is so broad. How did you figure out what you wanted to do?
I'm going to be 100% transparent and honest with this. I did not. I had no idea. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Um, and so I honestly was looking more about the company and the people and focusing on, to me, it's kind of like the work that I do. While that's important, I think the environment is a bigger thing for me and the people that I'm working with. I want to work, in a positive, supportive learning environment. So that's really what I was mainly looking for. Um, yeah.
And
I,
how did you figure out those companies? Did you take a shotgun approach? Were you very spearfishing in choosing your targets and your network?
yeah. So going through my network, I had a, a colleague who I went through the boot camp with, and when I was teaching on the boot camp, I had him come back and speak about his current position in cyber, and he basically talked about the company and how much he enjoyed working for the company, and just talking about the company culture and whatnot, and talking about his job and his day-to-day tasks. And I thought I could do that job. That sounds perfect. That sounds like the perfect environment for me. So I basically just kept an eye on the website and kind of stalked the company until a position came up. And then I reached out to him and I said, hey, it looks like your company is hiring for this position. Is there any way you'd be able to give me a recommendation, or is there someone that I can speak to? How can I make this happen? And that's how I got my first job in cyber.
Wow. So, and with regards to your resume and kind of describing your experience, how was that in the interview process? You're going from student to instructor to analyst now. How's that experience?
So again, I think it was really just focusing on showing my passion um, for cybersecurity and really just for learning. Because in this industry, it's all about that desire to learn, because you are going to be constantly learning and you do need to be comfortable with new things and developing, rather than just doing the same job for years, because that's not going to happen. It's going to evolve. So um, in the time that I was, you know, actually right before applying for this position and looking for more opportunities to include on my resume, I did go through the SANS Immersion Academy. So I had taken 3 SANS courses and done 3 SANS certifications in 6 months, which is like insanity. So I think between that and showing that I was able to go through the cybersecurity boot camp without really any sort of background knowledge, and then going into teaching and all of that, it just kind of showed that I had that dedication and ability to grow.
I was just about to ask, like, what are some of the things that you did for that continuous education? I did one SAN course and trying to do it. I think we had a 3 month time span to do it, and even that was hard.
Mhm.
So 3 and 6 months, that's even more compressed. Um, what are some of the areas within cyber that you love or that you love to share with others?
That's a great question. So right now in my work, I'm doing security assessments and pen tests, and I think probably one of my favorite pieces with that job is researching the vulnerabilities that I do find. I've always been a fan of research, and I actually really like writing reports, which is kind of funny because it's like my specific area of cyber. People are known for not liking report writing. They tend to prefer the like technical testing, which I do enjoy also, but I also like the research and writing aspect of it. Um, I'm really fond of OSINT work. I love. I just recently did my first Trace Lab CTF. The last one that they had a few months ago. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think just really trying to experience different areas, and I'm still dabbling in different things. I have my full-time job, and then I have my part-time cyber job with education, and then I'm doing CTFs on the side, and just kind of trying to experience everything.
Wow, that keeps you busy, and that's
Oh,
great
for
too.
sure.
So, for say someone following in your footsteps from nanny to cyber engineer, uh, what recommendations would you have for them?
um I'd have to say the biggest thing is for me was my network, and being able to show my passion and dedication to my network of people. And really, it's hard to find good people, so building trust is really important. And um, you're going to do that by showing that you're capable of committing and capable of learning. So volunteering is huge. I mean, pretty much anywhere that nonprofits will love volunteers. Organizations. I'm part of the WESIS, part of Women's Cyber Jetsu, CSNP. There's just so many different organizations out there that you can partner with and network through, and also volunteer. So you're like hitting all of the points there. As long as you're dedicated, you can't overcommit. That's the biggest thing. Is I've had student volunteers myself, and I've told them, like, I am very excited to have student volunteers, but you have to show your dedication, because I cannot give you a good recommendation if you aren't dedicated and you don't follow through on your responsibilities. So um, definitely growing that network, and getting out there and doing those things.
Yeah, we have a comment from, I'm going to butcher this name, Eab, on LinkedIn. 100%, I wouldn't have gotten my first role in infosec without my network. So I was going to ask you, how do you go about networking? But you mentioned some great women networking groups. What recommendations would you give for someone that's shy or introverted to go out and network? Because that seems intimidating for many.
It's very intimidating. And that was me when I first started. So after I had tried to get into the industry and was getting stuck, and I started reaching out to people, and I'll never forget, like, one of the very first people that I reached out to, who's one of my own personal mentors. Um, she was the one that told me, you have to network, you have to do it. And I said, but I'm introverted, I don't like talking to people. And she said, so am I, you'll get used to it. And it's funny because you do, but I will say, if I can do it, you can do it. Like, I am definitely introverted. I've struggled from social anxiety my entire life since I was, around 8 years old. So if I can do it, you can do it. Just slowly get in there. And the way that I started was I wrote out goals for myself. I had to do that because that was the only way that I was going to stick to it. So I made certain checklists for every month. Like, and this was pre-COVID. This was about the year before COVID started, but now we're getting back to in-person events. But I had, a requirement of myself that I would attend at least one in-person networking event a month. and I would connect with at least 5 people, and I would attend, make that list for yourself so you can check those boxes. And it makes it a little bit easier, I think, than just kind of going in there and, trying to figure it out.
And for those that are in a remote world, any recommendations for networking remotely?
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. There's tons of, especially now, tons of virtual conferences and webinars. I just did um, the day of security, which again, sorry, it's a woman geared conference, but um, you know, all of these all of these women's organizations, of course, they love to have male allies, so everyone is welcome. Um, and they had an entire networking segment that was almost like networking speed dating, almost, where you jumped into a room and you basically were paired with, 5 different people individually for a couple of minutes. So you got to do like a speed networking session. There's all kinds of different opportunities like that. I have to say, one of my great friends and cyber ally who's already I've already seen her name pop up in here, Alma Renaz. I met her um, through Lesbians Who Tech, and I happened to go to one of their events, and we all dropped our LinkedIn's in the chat, and afterwards I connected with her and I said, hey, it was great to meet you at the event, and um, it just kind of went on from there. We went talked back and forth, and um, eventually met a couple years later. But you never know the type of connections that you'll make, and there are those opportunities to do that pretty much anywhere. Network, if you're in a class, if you're in a boot camp, just to basically talk to everyone. You never know where that's going to lead, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do the same thing. There's Discords, there's Slacks,
Mhm.
there's so many different avenues for that. Um, one question that I had for you: you mentioned that you liked writing reports? Did you do like mock reports or mock analysis or a blog or anything like that prior to getting your first role?
I didn't. Honestly, I had no idea. It's funny because I know pen testing is one of like the larger areas that people like aspire to get into, and I had no idea how little testing is actually involved in pen testing and how much of it is Excel spreadsheets and report writing. It's kind of funny. Um, but yeah, I didn't really have very much experience. I mean, other than just standard papers and within college and whatnot. I know I did with the G Pen through the SANS Academy. They went through the process of um, the pen testing process and kind of went into the reporting a little bit, but there wasn't any mock reports or anything like that.
Roy Roy commented, social goals. This is what I call them. Make 3 to 5 connections a day, and not just connections, but actually talking to people. I also had a connection goal, 1,000 connections, and also started to blog as part of my social goals. Lots of great advice from Mr. Foulon, but not sure that he remembers it or not. Yep, sure do. Uh, great advice, Chris, as well. So we're getting towards the end. For someone now seeing all of your approaches, how would you summarize that into one piece of sage advice that you would share for someone?
Um, I guess network and stand out. I mean, show your passion and your dedication while you're networking, and that's gonna really what's going to be what gets you far. So
How do you stand out in a crowd digitally or remotely?
yeah, so I mean, there's tons of different ways, and um, I think that was just mentioned blogging, but basically in the digital world, posting and there's Twitter, you can retweet, you can create your own content. If you're doing CTFs, you can do a CTF walkthrough or a write-up, but basically just showing that you're passionate about the industry and what you're doing within it to share your knowledge, to learn more and share that with others.
Wow. Chris Lemmon, thanks so much for all your advice. Any parting resources that you'd want to share? Any books that you want to recommend? Anything like that?
Sure. Yeah, I actually just started reading Alyssa Miller's guide to cybersecurity, and I don't know if that's the technical title of it, but that I'm really excited to finish that one off. But just getting out there and looking up those organizations and local organizations and local meetups, I think is key.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much. For those of you following us on LinkedIn, follow myself, follow Chris. For those of you on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit that notification button. Oh, looks like we got one more question. Do you have time for one more question, Chris?
Sure.
So, how would you go about learning all the information security has to offer? Is it best to socialize or a little bit of everything? I mean, specialize.
That's a great question, and I think there are different viewpoints on that. I was recently in a webinar where they suggested specializing when you're trying to break in and kind of showing your passion and dedication to that specific area of what you're looking for. That's not the route that I took. I personally just kind of dabbled in everything because, like I mentioned, I'm still trying to figure out what I really love, because it's just experiencing a lot of different things. I'm enjoying different areas of everything I've worked with in cyber. So um, I think that's maybe more of a personal decision, because I have heard both viewpoints on that. I think what's important is really um, figuring out what you do want to specialize in. So um, getting to that point eventually. I don't think it's necessarily in my route, not what I did first, but continue learning and don't just stick with one particular thing um, until you know that that's what is really what's for you. Hopefully that's helpful.
Well, I definitely think it is. I myself took a similar route. I generalized first and then started to specialize. Um, well, again, thank you so much, Chris, and thanks for everyone for joining us. Follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter too, and share this podcast with anyone and everyone. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.